Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Starting university can be such an exciting time in life, but it can also be overwhelming, especially if you're trying to stay true to your faith whilst balancing your studies. As a Muslim, you might be wondering, how can I balance my hectic schedule of my studies and my social life and my religious obligations? In this video, I'll be sharing 10 tips, inshallah, that'll help you survive university but not compromise on your deen. Let's get started. So you've started university, maybe you've settled in now, it's about the start of the new term, especially if you are in the UK or wherever you are in the world. You might be excited, you've gone through the whole process of the application, your exams, your results, and bought all of your university supplies, and you might be living at home or might be living away. So now the reality starts to kick in. I remember when I started my first degree and the absolute shock I got when you start and you realize how different it is from your other studies, because suddenly not only do you have a lot to study, but maybe you're entering the adult phase of your life and you've got a lot more responsibilities and there's a lot more opportunity, and the environment is very different at university compared to your college or school maybe. The first and foremost important tip I would say is establishing a salah routine as a Muslim. So you might have early morning lectures, you might have late finishes, you might be exhausted because when you come home you might have to think about what am I going to cook if you're living alone, and I've got loads of coursework to do, and that really does pile up, doesn't it? So think about, what is my salah routine going to be? It might be, and it should be, that on campus you should have a prayer hall available. Now, it might not necessarily be close to your particular lecture halls. So think about, if you can't get there in time, where else can you pray? I remember when I was at university, there was one friend, mashallah, she was so devoted that she was so devout and wanted to establish her prayers on time that she at one time couldn't get anywhere to pray. The prayer room that was available was closed, so she asked a friend if she could borrow the keys to her car so that she could sit inside the car and at least offer her salah there, subhanallah. So it just shows that you can, if you want to, make some time out for your prayers. So even if you've got a busy schedule, make sure you set apps or alarms on your phone for the different prayer times so that you don't forget it, and give yourself enough time. Maybe during your lunch hour you can offer one of the salahs, or straight after, maybe in between your lectures you can arrange a little prayer space for you to offer your salah. And don't forget to offer it when you get home if there's still time, if you haven't already done so during the day. The second tip would be to find out if your university has an ISAC. This is usually an Islamic society put together by some Muslim students, and this is a really good place to find other like-minded students. They might even have, or they should have, obviously, a prayer room. They might even offer the Jummah khutbah, the Jummah prayers happening there, and they should have other events going on. So from my time, I remember that they would have iftar happening in Ramadan, or other workshops and even talks that you can go to, but just somewhere that you can relax and keep in touch with your deen. The third tip would be to find some Muslim friends. It might be that you're going with friends that you already know. It is a really good opportunity also to meet with other Muslims from other parts of the world or other parts of the country. It is really important to surround yourself in a nice Muslim community with people who share your values, and this could be in the form of your friends. It could be that in that city you find out where the local masjid is. There are some cities, for example the city where we live, in Newcastle upon Tyne, it's known as a student city, and there's very busy student ISACs here, and we have a lot of students who come here. So just find out, it might not be in your city, maybe in the next city or somewhere local to you, what is available. Inshallah you should find something, but if you don't find anything at all, just create some opportunities for yourself. So what I mean by that is just get together with a couple of friends that you can spend some time, even if it's just a very, very short time, even a half an hour in a week, where you can maybe sit and chat and just catch up on matters related to your personal life, but also your deen, and just have somewhere that you can have some accountability with other people in terms of if you're struggling with your deen or if you're able to fulfill the rights of your deen, inshallah. The fourth tip would be to balance your faith, and your social life. So when you get to university, there is a lot of opportunity for social events, right? They do them as part of the Freshers Week, which is the first week when you go to university. There'll be loads of different societies. Just be really careful whether those align with what your values and what your faith teaches you, what is allowed and what is not allowed. So you should be the better judge of that. And there's going to be sometimes a lot more freedom for you than you've ever had before. You know, if you're away from home, you're in a completely different environment. And those social things exist precisely because students are usually so busy with the academics. They want them to get involved in these other societies as well. So if they are good and beneficial for you, then by all means get involved. But if they're not, then just do your best to stay away from them. So you're not opening up the doors for yourself to do things that you shouldn't be doing, basically. And if someone does invite you to these events, just respectfully, as a Muslim, you should always be respectful. Respectfully decline their invitation if you know that it's going to be a place where, you know, in your heart, you know that I shouldn't be going there. And there are some extreme things that happen. I know from people that I've spoken to, from students at university. I've been to universities here, so I know what it's like, especially when your friends might be going. But really just think about that and be true to yourself. It doesn't matter at the end of the day what other people think of you. You're not here to please other people. You're here to please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if it is, you know, you do feel that social pressure that everybody else is going, but you don't want to, just don't do it, inshallah, and you'll be better for it if it's not something that you're comfortable with doing. Tip number 5 is time management and academic success. Balance your study time, your prayer, and social activities. So obviously don't only immerse yourself in academics and go mad and crazy just studying non-stop. Some degrees are very heavy going, but as a person, you should, for your own sake, for your own mental health, balance these things. So remember, barakah and blessing come from balancing your time properly. So put some time aside where you're going to focus on your deen. Put some time aside where you're going to focus on your studies. But also put your time aside where you are going to socialize, whether that's with your family, your friends, you're going to go back home, or if you're already living at home, you're going to go and visit relatives or whatever you do to socialize. Or even if you just need some time out to do some TLC, you know, just to look after your own self. Do take care of your own needs and make sure you balance. And the best way of doing that is plan from beforehand. So not on the last minute, but from now, if it's the beginning of the academic year, which it is here in the UK, to the end of the term, for example, like when are your holidays coming up? What are you going to be doing in the holidays? When are you going to be meeting those essay and assignment deadlines? And when are you going to be giving time to your family, for example? Tip number 6 is to make sure that you are eating halal food, especially if you're in a campus where maybe it's away from home, and just find out from before you go, or if you're there now, where you can access this from, because you want to obviously make sure that you, as a student, need to be eating well. So as well as making time out to eat well and look after yourself and making sure you're getting good nutritional value, find out where you can get good nutritional food from, because as students, sometimes we don't prioritize food at all. It's right at the bottom, isn't it, of our list of priorities. But that could then have an effect on your health. That could then have an effect on your studies. And that's not good. It's not good for you. So make sure that you find out where you can get halal, nutritious food. Make sure that you are eating well. Tip number 7 is when it comes to Ramadan and fasting, this is when things can get challenging because, you know, especially if you're living somewhere where it might be a really long fast, and this but this then affects your waking up time because maybe you're not getting enough sleep in the morning, for example. Think about when you can get enough sleep and how you can timetable it in. Think about whether it's possible to speak to professors. So sometimes schools can be a little bit flexible. I know with the younger children when it comes to exams and Ramadan, maybe the universities might not be so much. But if that is the case, then think of tips that you can apply in order to, say, for example, maximize your water intake and give yourself time to do ibadah, but also do your studies at the same time, but also make sure you're getting enough sleep. So don't neglect your ibadah, but also don't neglect your self-care at that time. inshallah. And these are some things to think about when it comes to Ramadan. And you can even attend lectures. If you have got an Isaac at university, I know that they arrange lectures in Ramadan. I know some universities are really good at arranging iftar, so at least you can get that sense of community that you feel in Ramadan as well. And some universities I know even arrange for Taraweeh, so you don't need to even go anywhere to do your night prayers. You can just do them where you are, inshallah. But see what is available to you where you are. And again, if there aren't all the things available that you're used to doing when you're home, then just think about what can I do. Tip number 8 is to make sure you maintain your Islamic etiquettes. This is so important because remember, as a Muslim, one of the things that you're doing and portraying all the time is through your own character, your mannerisms and your speech, what kind of person you are. And you should also always embody a good image to other people, because as a Muslim, that's really what you should, realistically, that's how you should be like. And I know sometimes, obviously, that's not easy, especially when you might be dealing with peer pressure or you might get into arguments or whatever. But as I've mentioned before, just think about how you are coming across when you're speaking to your professors, when you're speaking to peers, when you're trying be kind, try and be modest, and try and be respectful in your interactions, inshallah. If there are any debates and questions that you get asked about Islam, then reply with wisdom and reply with patience. And if you don't know the answer, you can find out the answer or tell them that you don't know the answer yet, just because these are some things that I know can happen when you're at university, inshallah. Tip number 9 is stay away from negative influences, whether these are influences in terms of people or environments or habits that you get into. So maybe there's people around you doing things that you won't necessarily ever have done before, and you have the opportunity. Surround yourself with positive people and positive influences, and set boundaries for yourself. Okay, so what you are willing to do and not willing to engage in. Tip number 10 is continue to seek Islamic knowledge. So I know you're there in university, and it might not be that you are even studying anything remotely Islamic whilst you are there for the purposes of university. But it doesn't mean that on your time off, so whether that's in the evenings or weekends, when you're winding down, not even something effortful, but you can just put on an Islamic lecture or talk. And sometimes that's just enough to give you that little bit of energy and that little bit of time to wind down, but whilst listening to something that's beneficial, inshallah, and that's something that might be soothing for you. It might be connecting you back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and just making your belief firm again, but doing it in a relaxed way. So maybe you just come home, you're not going to be studying yet, you're cooking, and whilst you're cooking, you can just put on a lecture. There are so many things available out there that you can access. So by doing this, you're making sure that in your free time, you're actually doing ibadah, because you're listening to something beneficial, but it's also going to benefit you. It's also going to benefit you as a person, even if you don't have any time to put aside to actually engage in seeking Islamic knowledge. You can still be doing this in a more passive way, inshallah. Finally, if you ever do feel homesick, then just have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Try and visit your family or phone them. And if you can't, I know it's easier to do that in this day and age, but maybe you're in another country and it's not easy to do that. Remember the purpose of why you are there in the first place. Have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make plenty of dua, and just exercise patience that this time will pass. And remember that as a Muslim, we should always be exercising gratitude and patience, inshallah. If you enjoyed this video, why not click on my next video about self-development for Muslims. I'll see you next time, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.